Welcome to this deep dive into the life and legacy of one of the most profound voices in American music and poetry, Gil Scott-Heron. Known as the godfather of rap, Gil's words and music shaped generations, blending jazz, blues, and spoken word into a powerful force for change. But his journey was more than just music. It was a revolutionary statement, a challenge to the status quo, and a reflection of the world around him. Born on April 1st, 1949 in Chicago, Gil's childhood was rich with culture and political consciousness. His mother was a classically trained opera singer, and his father, known as the Black Arrow, was the first black soccer player to play for Scotland's Celtic FC. Though he spent his early years in Jackson, Tennessee, the realities of segregation and racial injustice were ever present in his life. In 1962, he was among the first black students to integrate his school, an experience that not only fueled his awareness of systemic oppression, but also sparked his passion for activism. These experiences would become the backbone of his music and poetry, as he sought to articulate the struggles of the marginalized.
So I wanted to contribute myself. I was writing down and putting all the categories together. I ain't got no money, I ain't got no job blues, I ain't got no woman blues. And then I said, wait a minute, see, I don't want to waste no categories. I ain't got no money blues, I ain't got no job blues, I ain't got no woman blues. Hell, them the same thing. Because if I could get me a job, I could make me some money, I could call me a lady. I'd be doing a whole bunch better. So I put them all in the same category. But I wrote other pieces of blues information. Because what had happened was that I had found out later on, unfortunately, in my education about people like Langston Hughes, about people like Sterling Brown, about people like County Cullen and Gene Toomer and Claude McKay. And these people had taken the blues as a poetry form back in the 20s and the teens during the Harlem Renaissance, and they had fine-tuned the blues. They had sanded it down so that it became a remarkable sort of an art form. But what happened is that in many instances, we didn't learn about that. We learned about the kind of poetry that nobody could understand. Like on 17th Street, 9th Avenue, when I was a teenager, man, we didn't want to hear nothing about poetry. Somebody say something about poetry, we say, oh yeah, where's he at? Bring him on over here. Because we was into shooting the jumper, and that was damn near all. So in the 9th grade, like a teacher sneaked up on us and put these pieces of paper on the table, told everybody to read them, and then tell her what we thought about it. So I said, well, it's all right. Shit, I'll try it. I looked at the poem. The poem said, what now outside the wall I see? A shadow of an image me. I said, well, God damn, let me read this again. What now outside the wall? In the back of the room, somebody said, hey, this must be deep. Because, you know, like, this must be deep is like a drape that we throw over everything, you know, like what we must be, this must be deep means that, like, I recognize all of these words individually. But damn if I can get anything out of the order in which they currently appear. This must be deep. I mean, because you figure it must be deep, it's in this book. You say, well, why the hell would they put it in this book if it didn't mean nothing? Because ordinarily you read that, don't mean nothing. You say, hey, this must be nonsense. But you don't want to say that with the teacher standing right next to you. Why you give me this, you know? So you say, hey, this must be deep. And what happens is that when a lot of folks get ready to write poetry, that's what they decide they're going to be, deep. They decide they're going to be poetic. So they come up to me, people come up to me sometimes and say, hey, read my poem. I read it. What now outside the wall I see? And the only thing I can say to them is, hey, this must be deep. Because like being influenced by the kind of poetry that we were all introduced to, people feel as though like the way to be poetic is to make sure that there's certain little parts of it can't nobody understand. Why would you need a poet to make things more complex? Two winos can make things more complex. One of them say to the other one, well, is it, well, is that, and the other one look at him right serious and say, yeah. And they communicated. You see, if communication is what it's all about. As far as most people sitting around watching it, could have been two poets talking to one another. They didn't have a clue. So the idea became not only to use ideas that were familiar to people in the community, but to use the language that everybody could understand. Of course, this poetry was always put down as street poetry because, of course, that's where the people were. People were on the street, and these were the people that you wanted to communicate with. Did an idea one time about how often it is that folks brother and sister one another, and how rare it is that something actually comes out of that people can grasp onto. Did a poem about the fact that oftentimes the people who are doing the most talking and the kind of conversations that you run into around this neighborhood should be the ones doing the most listening. The poem we did was called Billy Green is Dead. The economy is in an uproar. The whole damn country's in the red. The taxi fares is going up. What? You say Billy Green is dead. The government can't decide on busing, or at least that's what they said. Yeah, I heard you when you told me. You said that Billy Green was dead. But let me tell you about these hot pants that this big leg sister wore when I was partying the other night. What you say? Billy took an overdose. Well, now, junkies will be junkies, but did you see Gunsmoke last night? Man, they had themselves a shootout and folks was dying left and right. At the end, when Matt was cornered, I had damn near give up hope. Why you keep on interrupting me? You say my son is taking dope. Well, then call the law and call the doctor. What you mean I shouldn't scream? My only son is on narcotics. Should I stand here like I'm pleased? Is that familiar, anybody? Check out what's inside your head. You see, never seems to matter when it's Billy Green who's dead.
Gil's literary influences were vast, but his connection to Langston Hughes was particularly deep. Hughes, a cornerstone of the Harlem Renaissance, had also attended Lincoln University, where Gil would later study. At Lincoln, he formed a crucial creative partnership with pianist Brian Jackson, fusing jazz, soul, and politically charged poetry into a unique and powerful musical form. It was here that Gil truly found his voice, not just as a musician, but as a truth teller. His music was never just about melody or rhythm. It was about narratives that exposed inequality, oppression, and the lived experiences of Black America. In 1970, Gil released his debut album Small Talk at 125th and Lenox, featuring his seminal spoken word piece, The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. The song was both an indictment of mainstream media and a call to action, urging people to be active participants in societal change rather than passive observers. You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. The track became a defining anthem of the Black Power movement and an enduring piece of cultural criticism that remains relevant in today's age of misinformation and media manipulation.
The revolution wasn't televised in the 60s. Is it going to be televised in the 90s?
Well, you know, the catchphrase, what that was all about, the revolution will not be televised, that was about the fact that the first change that takes place is in your mind. You have to change your mind before you change the way you live and the way you move. So when we said that the revolution will not be televised, we were saying that, like, that the thing that's going to change people is something that no one will ever be able to capture on film. It'll just be something that you see, and all of a sudden you realize, I'm on the wrong page, or I'm on the right page, but I'm on the wrong note. And I've got to get in sync with everyone else to understand what's happening in this country. But I think that the Black Americans have been the only real die-hard Americans here, because we're the only ones who've carried the process through the process. That everyone else has to sort of like skip stages. We're the ones who marched, we're the ones who carried the Bible, we're the ones who carried the flag, we're the ones who tried to go through the courts. And being born American didn't seem to matter. Because we were born Americans, but we still had to fight for what we were looking for. And we still had to go through those channels and those processes.
Gil's next albums, Pieces of a Man, 1971, and Winter in America, 1974, refined his blend of spoken word, blues, and jazz, tackling issues ranging from poverty and addiction to institutional racism. The Bottle addressed alcoholism and substance abuse in Black communities. Johannesburg called attention to the apartheid crisis in South Africa long before it became a mainstream global issue. B-Movie delivered a scathing critique of President Ronald Reagan, highlighting the widening wealth gap and racial disparities of the 1980s. His music was a form of protest, education, and empowerment, urging listeners to take action rather than just listen. Despite his brilliance, Gil's life was not without hardship. The crack cocaine epidemic of the 1980s devastated many Black communities, and Gil himself fell into addiction. Multiple incarcerations followed, and his once booming career slowed significantly. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, he was in and out of prison, his once powerful voice diminished by personal demons, and yet he never stopped creating, Even at his lowest points, he still sought to tell the truth. In 1994, he released Message to the Messengers, a direct address to the rising hip-hop generation, urging them to use their voices for real change, not just profit.
We had on the table back there, I wonder how somebody always manages to get in our dressing room and put down all these songs they want to hear. Glad they named one I had the chords to. That'll help me off in the right direction.
Despite his struggles, Gil Scott-Heron never truly faded into obscurity. In 2010, he released I'm New Here, a deeply personal and haunting album reflecting on his life, regrets, and the passage of time. It was a final chapter in his career that garnered critical acclaim, proving that his artistry had never truly left him. Gil passed away on May 27, 2011, at the age of 62, but his impact has only grown since his passing. His words and music laid the foundation for countless artists, from Public Enemy and Common to Kendrick Lamar and Kanye West. His work demonstrated that music and activism were inseparable, that art, when wielded with truth, could be a revolutionary force. His voice echoes through the streets, through movements, through new generations of activists and artists. His revolution was never meant to be televised, it was meant to be lived.
A lot of people may well see this particular gentleman as someone who makes an appearance either in a supporting or non-supporting role in many of the poems that I do. The truth is that the politics that we discuss are not partisan politics in terms of Democrat or Republican. I am a member of the Common Sense Party. And for the longest count of a time, I have felt as though people who said that they did not care anything about politics or were not interested in it were making a political statement in and of itself. The new poetry that evolved in our society concerned the fact that folks wanted to use both words that people could understand as well as talk about ideas that people could understand. One such poem, at least an early poem of ours that went in that direction, concerned the fact that millions and millions of dollars are continually sent into outer space while we continue to face the same problems here on the ground. The poem said, a rat done bit my sister Nell with Whitey on the moon, and her face and arms began to swell, and Whitey's on the moon. I can't pay no doctor bills, but Whitey's on the moon. 10 years from now, I'll be paying still while Whitey's on the moon. You know the man just upped my rent last night? Because Whitey's on the moon. No hot water, no toilets, and no lights, but Whitey's on the moon. I wonder why he's upping me. Because Whitey's on the moon? I was already giving him $50 a week, and now Whitey's on the moon. Taxes taking my whole damn check. The junkies make me a nervous wreck. The price of food is going up. And as if all that crap wasn't enough, a rat done bit my sister Nell with Whitey on the moon. Her face and arms began to swell, and Whitey's on the moon. Was all that money I made last year for Whitey on the moon? How come I ain't got no money here? Whitey's on the moon. You know, I just about had my fill of Whitey on the moon. I think I'll send these doctor bills, airmail special, to Whitey on the moon.
The world today still grapples with many of the same issues Gil Scott-Heron sang about: police brutality, racial injustice, economic disparity, and political corruption. His words remain a guiding force for those seeking truth, justice, and a better world. If his music has impacted you, let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.
We have done a number of songs, we hope, that have strengthened our connection with the third world, because it seems as though oftentimes there are attempts to split us up, divide and conquer, keep us at odds with one another so that we never define the things that we have in common. But we have more things in common than we do that separate us. The song that we wrote was about people who are sometimes referred to as aliens, or worse still, illegal aliens. And we have insisted that this is to differentiate them from folks who have come here from Mars legally. And these are folks who in our song come across near Tijuana or the Rio Grande. They're brought into this country by coyotes, people smugglers. They're forced to pay mordida, the bribes, to keep from being turned into immigration. And when they do that, they're called pollos, chickens, ripe for the plucking. Sometimes these folks come into this country with only their dreams of doing better and the clothes they got on their back. And this is what we have in common with them. The reason we get up every day and decide to try it again is because we have dreams of doing better. The song is about holding on to your dreams. We call the song Alien. You got a little something to help us out with the salsa, see? Mi amigo de la calle, dígame otra vez, uno más por favor, como otra vez con la ritma. Midnight near the border, trying to cross the Rio Grande, running with coyotes where the streets are paved with gold, diving underwater when you hear the helicopters, knowing it's